Alright, as you can see, working on the bird again today. Gonna be trying to get that transmission in and bleed the brakes because we had to modify the master cylinder with what, an E32 master cylinder, IX or something like that, I don't know. Let's see if we can get done today.
So is it probably just gonna go up here next to the coolant reservoir?
Yeah, sure, why not?
Big, so
Yay.
like, dude, you were killing it. And then like Austin goes and everybody just like silent, like, oh. Less into being conceited assholes and more into being good drivers. But apparently she was able to get some sort of cool options or something like that. Catching anything on your security cam yet?
Nope, everything's boring. The way I like it. So apparently, the way the AKG stuff works, or the Arc Asylum transmission brace works. Hold on. So it uses both sections of the automatic and manual transmission mounting studs, so we're going to need to put mounting studs here and here to get everything to bolt up correctly. I'm talking to the camera, by the way.
Good, because I wasn't listening. Okay. I'm just going to leave this out.
Alright, finally, I think today's day 7, and things are finally starting to come together a little bit. For right now, this is how we've plumbed the IX master cylinder. Got some lines, the reservoir is mounted here temporarily, got the clutch line hooked up. And here's one of the really cool things about the Z3 Roadster, is the starter actually is threaded. Most of the other BMW stuff, it's kind of bolt nut combo. It is kind of a pain in the ass because I don't have an angled ratchet to get back there, so I'm going to do a bunch of extensions and whatnot, but for the most part I think I'm getting pretty good by hand and shouldn't be too difficult. There's you can see the shift fork just a little bit back there, and you want to really be careful when you put your slave cylinder in that the slave cylinder plunger hits right smack dab where that little dot is. If you miss it and you bleed the clutch, you'll wind up pushing the plunger into the bell housing, and I don't think it's magnetic, so I'm assuming that if it gets stuck in there, you have to take the transmission out, and I don't think we want to do that, so let's make sure we get that in right. I'll show you a real easy way to bleed the clutch system. You get a nice, neat little handy brake bleeder system like this, but I just use the clear hose. I don't bother using any pressurized systems. You just put this over there, open the valve, and we can watch the fluid just push into here. The master cylinder acts like a check valve, so it won't suck up any oxygen. So it should work pretty good, I think. Okay, so all I'm gonna do is press on the pedal. I've set up the reservoir right there. You can already see it kind of bleeding out. And so all I'm gonna do is press down on the clutch and then slowly bring it back up. And you can watch it just start filling up the reservoir. Let this thing gravity bleed for a while, so it doesn't actually seem to have any air in it. It's going to be a 4th pump. Oh, it's getting a little bit dirty fluid out, so let's give it another pump or two. And that's probably good, so I'm going to go tighten off that bleed screw, and that literally took me maybe 2 minutes to bleed the clutch. Alright, next thing we got here is we're removing the, I think it's the coolant line that goes to the original throttle body. It's supposed to warm up the throttle body in frozen conditions. We're not going to be using that anymore. Going to block off the other side, but from Garage Tastic we got a pre-threaded in coolant temperature sensor for the cluster temperature gauge. This way we can keep the factory temperature gauge working and not have to install an aftermarket one for that kick-ass clean install. For the other side, I'm probably just going to take a bolt, shove it in there, and tie it off. Thread this in there. And this way we can keep our factory temperature gauge. Yay. I'm also kind of a lazy asshole to figure out how this coolant hose should work with the factory stuff, so I'm going to cut myself a little bit of slack, bring it to the factory late model reservoir, just because we're going to be reversing the factory radiator. Probably a good idea to keep this going. Not the prettiest job, but can always be fixed later. I'm going to try to fill up the steering fluid. Not because it really needs to be done, but because once the intake manifold's on, it's going to be kind of a bitch. And it's still going to need to bleed a little bit, so I might as well check and see if there's any leaks now. Then when we get down the road. Alright, so next up on the list, this is the factory fuel rail that came out. It's OBD2, so it requires an external fuel pressure regulator, and we don't want to do that. So this is a fuel rail off of, I think, an E39, and the only real difference between the two is the fuel pressure regulator here at the end. So I'm going to swap these injectors out. The O-rings should be pliable. They just come out with these little clips and put in from one to the other. Alright, so now we've got I don't know how to pronounce it, garage-tastic harness adapter. So this directly plugs into the C101 connector somehow, like that, which should fit back into the factory harness holder. And this bit plugs directly into the X20 connector. Bam. I'm gonna have to make that look prettier. And let's see, there's a couple extra little bits in this pigtail harness. So this one says insert into X6031 number 1 12-pin connector for check engine light. So that's what this duder is. So plug in pin 1, you are pin 1. There's got to be something better you can do with that, right? Like, how am I supposed to keep this from getting wet and stuff? I don't get it. But anywho, this is what we want. This one says E30 coolant temp sensor, which is the one to put inside the head. And I suppose that's basically it for today.